Last week, I made a reel or a short or whatever you want to call it, in which I talked about the fact that narcissists cannot recognize your good traits. They cannot recognize your compassion, your devotion, your loyalty, your empathy. And so when a narcissist discards you or rejects you, you shouldn't take that too personally. You shouldn't take that as a measure of your self-worth because they cannot see the valuable things about you. They can only see your utility. They can only see what uses they have for you. So if a narcissist rejects you, it's not because you're not kind enough or thoughtful enough or a hard enough worker. It's because they don't have any use for you, because they can't see your good traits. And someone commented on the reel and they said something to the effect of, I'm paraphrasing, wait a minute, I thought narcissists were jealous of our good traits. So how can they be jealous of our good traits if they can't see our good traits? And that is a really, really good question. And so in today's video, I'm going to explain how and why narcissists are jealous of our good traits while at the same time not being able to see or recognize them. Welcome to Looking Behind the Mirror, where we explore narcissism and take our lives back as we make sense out of nonsense. As a quick disclaimer, everything I say is based on my opinions and my personal experiences. I'm not a professional, and if you're really struggling, I encourage you to seek professional help. I am providing links below for you. Now, it's no secret that narcissism can get very confusing and very complicated, and this is certainly a really good example of how confusing this can be. How can somebody be jealous of things that they don't recognize or see? And I want to really break this down into understandable little chunks. And the first concept I want to talk about is the fact that all of us process information and interpret the world around us through unconscious thoughts and beliefs and the conscious thoughts and beliefs that we have, and the reality that's either in line with one or both of those or is completely out of line with what we are thinking consciously and unconsciously. All of us struggle to reconcile all of these different areas of understanding. It's not just narcissists. It's just that narcissists in particular have an extremely difficult time reconciling unconscious with unconscious beliefs and reconciling that with reality. A lot of that is way out of whack for narcissists, but it's something that we all struggle with. And if we can really think about the ways that we struggle with these things, then it can help us understand why the narcissist is jealous of us and doesn't recognize why they're jealous of us at the same time. So just as a quick example of what I mean when I'm talking about unconscious and conscious beliefs, let's just say that when you were growing up, your mom, let's pick on your mom, let's say that she called you lazy all the time and was always complaining that you just sit around and do nothing, okay? And so you developed this complex where you believed that you were a lazy person and that because you were lazy, you didn't deserve your own mother's love and acceptance because of how lazy you were. So this turned into some kind of internalized shame for you, let's just say. And now let's say as an adult, you became a workaholic to try to counteract these unconscious beliefs you have now. And so unconsciously as an adult, you probably still believe, if this is something that happened to you, you probably still believe deep down that you are lazy and that you don't deserve love and acceptance unless you can stop being lazy. And your conscious beliefs as an adult who's a workaholic might be something like, wow, I am such a hard worker. I am the first one in the office and the last one out. I really do everything I can to make sure things get done. And maybe that makes you feel good about yourself. That's the conscious belief that you have that's countering the unconscious belief. And then when we introduce reality into this example, reality is when you were a kid and your mom was making you feel like a worthless slug because you were lazy. you probably weren't any more lazy than any other kid. So you weren't exceptionally lazy, and your mom was probably projecting some of her own insecurities onto you. And you always deserved love and acceptance from your mother, regardless of whether or not you were lazy. So the reality was completely out of line with the unconscious beliefs of, I'm lazy and I don't deserve love because I'm lazy. The reality was that you really weren't that lazy, and even if you were, you still deserved love and acceptance. Now, as an adult, if this was you, as an adult, you tell yourself what a hard worker you are and how productive you are. And maybe you even introduce a little bit of superiority, like you compare yourself to others and you think, wow, I'm a much harder worker than so and so, therefore I'm superior, and it makes you feel like you're a better person. When really that's countering the unconscious shame and insecurity of, I'm not lovable, I'm not a good enough person, other people are better than me because I'm lazy. Now you're telling yourself, well, I'm such a hard worker, I'm a harder worker than these other people, therefore I deserve love and acceptance. When reality is that you deserve love and acceptance no matter how hard you work or don't work. It has nothing to do with your value as a human being. And in this example, you're probably working too hard for people that really either aren't benefiting from it or don't appreciate you. So that's a quick example that I think is probably pretty common for people that have unconscious beliefs that probably formed in childhood or maybe in a traumatic relationship. Conscious beliefs that are actually countering these unconscious beliefs that they either don't want to deal with or aren't aware of. So the person in this example can tell themselves consciously, I'm such a hard worker, therefore I'm worthy as a human being of love and acceptance, in an effort to cancel out or to overcompensate for this unconscious belief that they really haven't acknowledged or dealt with. Now, I promise I'm going to bring this back around to narcissism, but part of the way I'm going to do that is right now I'm going to share a personal experience of something that I went through when I was younger that I think a lot of people can understand and relate to. Maybe some of you have even been through a similar experience. And then I'm going to use that to explain how a narcissist views your good traits and why they are jealous. So I have a son and he is an adult now, so I'm not raising him anymore. But when I was raising him, cumulatively, I think about 11 years of the 18 years I raised him, I was single. So I was a single mom for most of the years he was growing up. And when I wasn't a single mom, I was a working mom. So I was always working, and I was single for a lot of it too. So I was also very young. So I was a good 5, 10, sometimes 15, or even 20 years younger than some of the moms that, the moms of the kids that my son went to school with, which, okay, so I'm getting into the story here. When I compared myself to other mothers, the mothers of the kids that my son went to school with, I would feel really inadequate. I would feel really bad about myself, really insecure. Like I was a bad mom. Like I couldn't do the things they did. I didn't have the time or the money, the energy, the resources, because I was so busy, and, I often just didn't have the money. And so I felt really bad about myself a lot of times. It's still painful to think about some of the things that I experienced that just made me feel like I was a crappy mom, compared to these older mothers that had more resources, and, a lot of them were stay-at-home married mothers. A lot of them were affluent. So I was comparing myself to people with just a lot more time and capacity for things than I had. And I'm going to tell a story of one specific example that kind of illustrates what I'm talking about concerning this. When my son was, I think he was in 2nd or 3rd grade, we had Valentine's Day, and it was the day before Valentine's Day. I thought it would be nice to help him make a Valentine's box to put Valentine's in, right? Now, when I was a kid, we all had like shoebox sized Valentine's boxes. And that's what I helped him make, is this cute little shoebox Valentine's box. And when I drove him to school the next morning to drop him off, I saw all these kids going into the school with like these huge, elaborate, like, I think this was a long, long time ago, but I feel like one of them had like a life-size robot Valentine's Day box. I mean, some of these things that the kids were carrying in looked like they had taken days to make, and just really elaborate works of art. Okay. And so of course I felt terrible that my son was going into the school. I felt like the only kid with just this normal little Valentine's Day box. And of course, this tapped into all of my shame and insecurity and feelings of inadequacy. But those were my unconscious beliefs of I'm not good enough. I'm a bad mom. I don't do enough for my son, right? Consciously, I expressed it as anger and resentment and jealousy. I said things to myself like, don't these moms have anything better to do than sit and make Valentine's Day boxes? I mean, is this what they spend all their time doing? And so, there was anger and resentment. And the jealousy wasn't just that they had more time and resources. If I'm being honest, like, who wants to sit and spend 3 days helping their kid make a Valentine's Day box? I mean, obviously they did, but even if I had had the time and resources to do that, it would have never occurred to me to make such elaborate works of art for Valentine's Day. So that made me feel bad about myself too. So I'm in this situation where I am in reality jealous of the traits that these other mothers had. I'm jealous that they had the thoughtfulness and the creativity and the time and the resources to do what they did for their kids, right? But at no time during this experience did I ever sit down and think, wow, these moms are so creative. They go through so much trouble to make these things for their kids. They're so artful. They're so thoughtful. What wonderful traits these mothers have. I mean, I certainly didn't perceive it that way. And I hope a lot of you listening right now are understanding this clicking of how a narcissist can be jealous of your good traits while also not recognizing them. Because in this experience that I had, I was jealous and angry, and that was what I was focused on. I didn't want to stop and think about how thoughtful and creative these mothers were. And so that was not something that I was consciously thinking about or recognizing. But in reality, that is what I was jealous of. You can't really be jealous of something and recognize the value, the true value and worth of it at the same time. And if we really bring this back to narcissism now, just in the way that at that time in my life, I didn't have the time and capacity to make a super elaborate Valentine's Day box for my son. A narcissist generally doesn't have the capacity or understanding to be empathetic or vulnerable or to connect with people. And so when they see other people doing those things, just like when I saw other mothers doing what I couldn't do, they're not recognizing the value in it. It's just making them feel more insecure about themselves. And to compensate for the unconscious beliefs that narcissists have about themselves, which is extremely toxic and shameful, a narcissist's unconscious beliefs are very dark, very self-loathing, very uncomfortable for a narcissist to deal with. And so they don't even want to look at them. They don't want to acknowledge them at all. And so they use their conscious beliefs to deal with what they actually believe about themselves. And so their conscious beliefs, when they see somebody being empathetic, maybe somebody is seeing someone else go through something difficult and it's hurting them. Maybe somebody is crying because their best friend's mom died or something like that. Okay. And so they're feeling this empathy and they're really upset. And when the narcissist sees that, they might have some shame triggered that that's not something they experience, but they're going to express it and cope with it by telling themselves, wow, I can't believe you're getting upset over something that somebody else is experiencing. That's really stupid. In fact, that makes you weak. So they're going to frame your strengths as weaknesses to make themselves feel better about themselves. And then they're going to tell themselves how they are actually a better person. They're better than you because they don't have the weakness of empathy. They're not going to sit and cry over what happened to somebody else. And so they'll take something that immediately strikes them as something that makes you better than them, and they'll turn it into something that makes them better than you. And they will do that so fast that I think most of them aren't even conscious of the fact that they're doing it. And so they can be jealous of your empathy, but they are going to experience that as maybe disgust, judgment of you, and superiority. They're not at any point going to sit down and say to themselves, wow, this person is such a warm, caring individual to have so much feeling for what their friend is going through. That's so nice. They are far, far from acknowledging the reality of this nice trait that you have in that way. Just like with the Valentine's Day boxes, I at no time sat and thought, wow, these mothers are so thoughtful and creative and took so much time. This is so nice. Just in that same way as I was far, far from doing that, the narcissist is far, far from even thinking about the things that make you a nice person. And when they mimic you, when they try to show vulnerability or kindness or generosity or whatever, they're doing those things to gain the rewards that they see that other people gain. So when they see, hey, everyone else seems to admire this person when they do kind, empathetic things. Well, I want to be admired, so I'm gonna do these things. They're doing it for the rewards. They're doing it for what they're going to get out of it. They're not doing it because they're actually a kind, empathetic person. And they know that deep down, which is why they judge you for being that way. And I think it's also important to note that while they haven't experienced empathy and compassion and vulnerability and connection in the way that you have, they're only seeing it from the surface. They're only seeing it by your expression of these things. They really don't understand what it's like to have real empathy for other people. Maybe they've had flashes of it. Maybe some of them have had flashes of it in their life, but they really don't get why you're crying for your friend's pain. And they really don't get why you would be vulnerable and truly open yourself up to other people and give other people the opportunity to hurt you. They really don't get why you would tell the truth about something that actually might harm you instead of lying. Why would you do that? They don't understand these things. They only see that society in some ways tends to reward or admire these traits. And so that's the only value that they see in these things, is the rewards that you might get for them. But of course, like I just said, sometimes our good traits can end up costing us things. Our empathy can cause us pain. Our vulnerability can leave us open to people taking advantage of us. Our connection with other people can create the opportunity for heartbreak. And that's all the narcissist sees, is the ways that these things can hurt us. And that's the only sense they can make out of it. And so they really don't understand what we get out of being empathetic and with connecting and being vulnerable with other people. And so, when I say they don't value these traits, maybe that's not completely accurate either, because they do value these traits that you have, but they don't value them for what they are. They don't value your empathy because it makes you a nice person and because that makes you somebody they want to connect with. They value your empathy because they can use your empathy to manipulate you. They can tell you how horrible their childhood was, or how sick they are right now, or how hard they tried, how all their exes were so horrible to them, and use your empathy to manipulate you and to convince you to do things you don't want to do, so that they can value your good traits in that way. like I said in the very beginning of this video, and like I said in the reel that I made, they value your utility. They value what they can use you for, not for the things that make you a good, valuable person, or the kind of person that a lot of people would want to have a friendship or relationship with. And so if you're somebody who's very empathetic or compassionate, kind, giving, they don't value those things because of the kind of person you are. They value those things for the utility. And so when you start putting boundaries down, when you start saying, you know, I'm not going to help you with this thing that you've been taking advantage of me with, you know, when you start to set those ground rules, they don't care that you're still the same empathetic, kind, giving person that you were before. They only care that those things have lost their utility for them. They can't use your good traits to their advantage anymore, and therefore those traits now have no value to them whatsoever. And I think that demonstrates their inability to see the value, the true value in your empathy and compassion and devotion and all these things. And that is what I mean when I say that they cannot see your good traits. They cannot see your kindness, your empathy, compassion, devotion, loyalty for what those things really are. It's like if somebody gave you a big bar of gold, it would be heavy because it's gold, right? And so it would be like me using that bar of gold as a paperweight because wow, this is nice and heavy, this gold. I can use this as a paperweight. I'm completely not understanding or seeing the true value in the gold itself, but only using it for what I can see, I can use it for the utility that I can recognize, and having the true value of it go completely over my head. And so, as I said in the reel, and as I said in the beginning of this video, the whole point of understanding this is to understand that when a narcissist rejects you or discards you or criticizes you endlessly and makes you feel like you're not good enough, it has nothing to do with how good of a person you actually are. It has nothing to do with any of the good traits you have, or how good of a friend you could be to someone, or how much you're worth to other people, because the narcissist cannot see your worth, can't see any of those things that most people value. And even if they could, they not only don't appreciate those things, but they resent those things. And they will try to discount and minimize and destroy those things and turn them into weaknesses and view the best things about you as things that actually make you weak or stupid or inferior in some way. So please don't let a narcissist's rejection of you be a measure of your self-worth. You could be the most wonderful human being in the whole world, and if a narcissist cannot see a way that they can use your traits for their advantage right now, none of that will matter. None of that will be anything that they can see. But that doesn't mean that you're not a great, wonderful person that deserves love and acceptance. It just means that you're dealing with someone who can't see any of the reasons that they should value their relationship with you. I hope this helps. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up and comment below any ideas you have for me for future videos. And don't forget to subscribe to my channel if you like this video and would like to see more like it in the future. Until next time, thanks. Bye. Lucy, are you gonna help me set up? Yeah. You gonna help me set up? We gotta clean this up. Yeah. Oh, you're so helpful. You're so helpful.